Hey everyone, welcome to our 61st episode of BrewTalk with Mr.Beer. My name is Robert Lewis. I'm once again your host for today's show. I appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in and watch us today. A little housekeeping before I get started. If you enjoyed today's show or any of our last 60 episodes for that matter, we ask that you please share the episode with a friend, share it on social media, like it, comment, subscribe to whatever platform that you are watching it on. We do post these on obviously Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Please make sure to follow us on all three channels as we do post sometimes some different information on there, especially on Instagram. We love sharing people's brewing picks on our Instagram stories. Also, if you want to read the notes that I use here, you can go to Mr.Beer.com/blog, and through there you have all of our blog posts. We've had a blog for about the last 7-8 years going back on some of our posts. There's a lot of useful information on there. So if you got questions or are unsure about certain topics, go to the blog. There's a search feature on there. Type in your question, see if you get an answer. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in there. All right, so let's dive into our topic today. It's a question we get quite often. So it's basically, the question is how to sanitize for and add hops for your dry hop edition. So it's kind of a different aspect when you start brewing recipes. You have these dry hopping editions where you add in hops for some aroma, is kind of their generally purpose. Everyone loves hops. Brewing with hops are cool. Dry hopping is all the rage, obviously, in craft beers or anything. A lot of recipes are dry hopped with this and this and this. And they taste and smell differently. So not obviously all people are sure how to kind of sanitize the hop stack or what they're supposed to do with that. So it kind of varies. So you always, just a good rule of thumb is you always want to sanitize everything that'll come in contact with your beer, no matter what it is. If you're unsure if it will come in contact with your beer, just sanitize anyway. It's not going to hurt anything. Depending on what recipe you're brewing with us, we will either have you dry hop with or without a hop stack, and that just kind of depends on how many hops we're putting in there. If you're only putting in like a ½ ounce to an ounce, we'll just have you dump them in because it doesn't really affect it too much. It's not that, not that hoppy, but if you got recipes that are doing 2 ounces plus sometimes, or, even if you're doing like oat chips or other funky things like that, we'll put them in the hop stack. Some of that stuff you don't want floating around in your beer, and it can always make it hard to bottle. So just always reference the instructions when you're brewing, but yeah, let's dive into it. So if you're going to sanitize, or if you're going to dry hop using a hop stack, you want to sanitize the hop stack. There's a few ways that you can do that. If you have any extra sanitizer packets, you can always mix them up and do it that way. Or we've recommended Star San several times. It's a great thing to have in a spray bottle when you're brewing. Great thing to have lying around. You can mix some of that up, let the hop stack soak in that Star San. It will get sanitized. If you don't have any extra sanitizer, the best way to do this is to get some water boiling, throw in the hop stack by itself, don't put the hops in it yet, and just let it boil in the water for a few, and then you should be good to go. And always make sure that you are going to sanitize any other equipment that you're going to be using as well. So if you're going to be using scissors to cut open the hop bag, you want to sanitize that. If you're going to have to use tongs to grab the hops out of the boiling water, or the hop bag out of the boiling water, you will want to make sure to sanitize your tongs as well. So just stick them in that boiling water and you'll be good to go. Obviously if you're not using a hop stack, then you just want to make sure that you're sanitizing your scissors, wash them, clean them, do whatever you can. Make sure they're all clean. All right, so that's sanitizing. It's pretty straightforward, and this applies, like I said, to everything. So some of our recipes, you add oat chips late, some of you add bacon, get some cool stuff going on. Make sure you're sanitizing the hop stack, either with sanitizer solution like Star San, or our no rinse, or boiling some water, so you're good to go. Now, when you're doing the actual dry hopping, that is kind of the next step of this. So when you're dumping your hops into the hop stack, make sure, I think it's very rare, but just always be very careful. You hold the hop stack open, dump the hops in, don't let the outside of the bag touch the hop stack and all that stuff like that. You get some cross-contamination going in there. I think risk of infection doing something like that would be extremely low, but you don't ever want to risk it, man. You always want to be safe when you're brewing beer. Once you pour the hops into your hop stack, or oat chips or bacon pieces, whatever it is that you're doing, you want to tie the hop stack off into a knot. Tie the knot a little bit up from where the top of the hops are sitting, or whatever it happens to be sitting, because once you put hops in beer, if anyone's ever brewed with them before with dry hopping, they soak up beer and they expand greatly. That's why hop stacks are very flexible. they like to expand, so you want a little room in there, a little surface area, so they can kind of spread out, expand, get all nice and comfortable in there. Now, when you're going to add them to your fermenter, you want to just quickly open your lid. You don't really want to remove your fermenter, but you want to open the lid, gently drop them in, put the lid back on. You're good to go. And if you're not using a hop sack, you just dump them on in. So you cut open the bag, open the lid, dump them in, put it back on. You are good to go. Always put your lid back on, and then you're done. It's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty easy process. I think the most part that people get caught up on is the sanitizing part. So just always remember to be careful about sanitizing. Make sure you're washing your hands. Make sure everything that you're using is clean. Because this is, I think, is a place where people start getting into recipes and more kind of advanced Mr.Beer recipes that involve some type of dry hopping, and then they get an infection because they didn't follow those steps carefully. I mean, once that yeast is pitched and that beer is brewing, it's you gotta be careful what you're doing. Don't want to ruin your batch. It's gonna wrap it up for this week. I appreciate you guys taking time to watch the video. Hope you learned something. Also, if you want to learn more about Mr.Beer or just brewing with Mr.Beer or hang out with fellow Mr.Beer brewers, join our Facebook group, Mr.Beer's Brewing Society. This can be found by searching for Mr.Beer's Brewing Society on Facebook. Make sure you answer the 3 questions and we will let you in. If you do not answer the 3 questions, I am sorry that we won't let you in. It's pretty straightforward. We just want to make sure that obviously we have Mr.Beer brewers in the group who want to contribute and learn some cool things. That is going to wrap it up this week. We will see you guys next week. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Make sure you're brewing some beer and drinking some awesome homebrew and sharing them with some friends. Cheers.